Welcome back, everybody. Ellis Cannon, you're watching us on Night Talk here at PCNC. Audrey Guskey is one of our favorite people, if not most famous. PhD, Duquesne University, consumer marketing analyst. She's a professor. How are you, Professor?
Ellis, I'm great. How are you?
All right. Boy, I tell you what, we've had a lot. We started things off with Melissa Hart talking about the president, and we watched his speech here and jumped into Geraldine Ferrara, and now we've got you, and let's talk a couple of segments about Pittsburgh. It looks like the retail market here is better than most people think.
It is incredible. This is just such fabulous news for the Pittsburgh area. Ellis, we were ranked 10th in the country as far as the healthiest retail economy or retail environment. That is huge, and I'm surprised that we didn't get more press on this because it's a big deal, and maybe I'm like Pittsburgh's cheerleader or something. Well, but as I love to be. Yeah. But you know, we really have done so many wonderful things in this area, and we're getting all the accolades and recognition. It's huge, it's powerful, it's absolutely incredible for the region. Now,
Audrey, I want to ask you about a couple of things, and here's the good news is, while this word may not have gotten out at the scale that you think it should have been, what's beautiful is with millions watching now, you have very much that opportunity.
That's really true. So we're almost, in a sense, breaking news.
Absolutely, yeah. In some respects. Now, why is it in your estimation that, first of all, this news has come out about being one of the top 10 retail markets, and second of all, why don't you think that is, in fact, received the type of notoriety or attention you think it deserves?
Well, I think that, you know, it was put out by an organization called Chain Links, and we were ranked 10th. We had D.C. being first, and Philadelphia was 8th. Not that we want to talk about that. But there were some, Boston was up there. No. I mean, you had some really good, powerful cities there. Sure. And so I think the fact that this wasn't maybe one of these big national surveys or national studies that was done, but this is an organization that looked at overall the economic health of the region. They looked at our unemployment. They looked at the vacancy rates that we have in the different retailers. They looked overall at spending. They looked at how successful the retailers were that are actually here. They looked at how many new retailers had come in. And so you add all that together. And basically what they said is we are ranked in the top 10 of all the cities in the country. And to me, this is such great economic news. We've been ranked most livable city. We've been ranked the best sports town in the area. And so you add all of these wonderful honors and recognition that we're getting, and I think overall it's finally sinking into us as Pittsburghers. I think, Ellis, to get back to your question, one of the reasons it hasn't been played up as much is we as Pittsburghers are very modest people, and a lot of times we don't get it. We're sometimes our best kept secret, and we don't realize in this region what a great city, what a great town it is to live in. And so I think overall this great economic news is once again going to make us as Pittsburghers recognize that, hey, we're doing something right.
Audrey Guskey, I was about to lament something similar. We don't like to beat our chests. We don't like to say, look at me. But there are times, I think, when you have to, particularly if you're talking about Boston and Philadelphia, other notable national cities recognized as such internationally, that it's important for Pittsburgh to capitalize on this. How does Pittsburgh capitalize on what you had just mentioned, the global livability rankings, the Economist saying that it was one of the most livable cities in the world, Forbes magazine? What happens here? I mean, you get this stuff. What do people do with it? How does people make that worth something?
Well, we were also recognized as the best tourist area in the United States and in the top 10 in the world. So you take organizations like Visit Pittsburgh who are using that in their promotion. When companies are looking to do conventions or people are looking to move into the city, you know, you've got all these brochures, these websites that are really, in a sense, have us listed, you know, by all of these different awards that we've won. And so I think what we really need to do is have organizations like that, of people like us talk about it, share that news with people we know. People are looking for vacations, people are looking for new places to settle down, and I think Pittsburgh is a very viable, very exciting place to be.
And there are some very specific things I want to get into in our next segment as to how Pittsburgh's demographics work in its favor, in your estimation. Let's hold off on that because I think a lot of people would be surprised on your point of view there. I think very surprised, and I'm going to make an argument that suggests that if in fact your point is correct, that it's something that should be marketed. But speaking of marketing, you said Visit Pittsburgh Pittsburgh.com. I've seen that they're victimized by Governor Corbett's budget, or his anticipated budget. Second of all, I saw some headlines here recently where 1 or 2 conventions have been snagged to come in. I think their job is going to be more difficult in light of some of the economic constraints.
Possibly. I mean, possibly. But, you know, when you add up together the number of conventions that we had the G20 here, we've had, you know, not World Series, but also,
you can be hopeful.
Okay, hopeful.
Okay.
All-Star games, we've had, you know, Stanley Cup here, we've had, you know, the Steelers in the playoffs, and so, you know, we've got a lot of things that have caused us to have this national recognition, national visibility, been really in the face of the country. And so I think, you know, people are recognizing that. And overall, you know, I understand that budgets have been cut, but in a sense, a lot of their promotion has been done by a lot of these activities and events and venues and things that have been happening in the region.
So if they're going to be cut, at least there's this resource or goodwill of capital that has been developed.
Yes.
Okay, good enough. We're going to come back. You know what our demographic is here in Pittsburgh. Some would suggest it doesn't work for what Audrey is saying. She says just the opposite. If you're part of that demographic and you know who you are, you'll want to wait 2 minutes and hear what she says right here at PCNC. Welcome back, America. I'm Ellis Cannon. Audrey Guskey, Ph.D., is here. A little bit later, Mike Gentile is going to be with us. First, Niagara Pavilion, exciting news. Speaking of exciting news, we're joined, obviously, by Audrey talking about Pittsburgh being ranked in the top 10 in terms of retail markets domestically. That might surprise people. There are some factors that you believe worked to Pittsburgh's advantage. One was the downturn of the economy did not hit Pittsburgh as hard. What do you mean by that?
Well, basically what happened is when the economy tanked, our economy stayed stable. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is when the economy was really strong and powerful in California and all the major metropolitan areas were thriving and excelling and the economy was just by leaps and bounds growing. We did not have that. We're a very stable market. So in a sense, I think because of who we are as Pittsburghers and the demographics, which I know you want to talk about in a minute, I think it just kept us rather stable. So we didn't have the big up, but we also didn't have the big down.
So we didn't hit the big low. And,
no.
and if you look at it, and this is how I always look at Pittsburgh, I typically see us as having some things hit us years later than they hit other people, for better or worse. But again, it may not be as high, it may not be as low, it's somewhere in the middle. Now, that's generally good. But I did some interesting reading here about a month or two ago where I heard or read that Cleveland did a marvelous job through the course of the recession to not just stay stable, to not just stay where they were, but to use it to plant some seeds in effect so that they would be further ahead when the recession broke. Is there some danger to that model you described, which is to say, we're not going to have a high, we won't have a big low, it's conservative?
Well, of course there is some danger. And, you know, Cleveland took a risk, too, in hoping that, you know, the money that they were spending and some of the impressions they were attempting to make, and they did extremely well, so they did. Pittsburgh is very similar to Cleveland, and so a lot of times we study what they do and they study what you know, we just watch each other. Overall, I think we're probably on the same level as them. And, you know, they are a little bit maybe more economically strong, but not that much.
Okay.
So I think the fact that, you know, we aren't on this roller coaster ride is a really good thing. And Ellis, you know, don't get me wrong, it's not like we sat back and said, well, we're not going to grow. That wasn't the case. We just, because of the different industries that we have here, education, healthcare, technology, we were able to stay, I guess, on an even keel. And that was good news.
All right, now the demographics. You heard me tease it a couple different times. We're older, more conservative, more traditional, all of those types of things. And you say that's a safe haven for retailers. What do you mean?
Sure it is, because retailers know what they're getting. They know Pittsburghers. So we're maybe a little bit older, lots of baby boomers, or even older than that. Very